You ever walk into your own apartment and immediately stop dead because what you're seeing doesn't make any sense? Like, the scene totally clashes with the version of reality you'd been living in up until that exact second. That's what happened to me one random Thursday night, not the kind of night you expect to become a plot twist in your own life, but here we are. So there I am, coming home later than usual from work, my mind already drifting toward the couch and maybe some badly reheated pizza. The place is dark except for this weird glow coming from Jake's room. Jake, my roommate, who's pretty much the physical embodiment of laid back. I figured he was just binging some late-night Netflix or something. Then I hear it, muffled voices, but not the sort of TV murmur or gaming chatter I'm used to. This was different. A serious kind of whispering, urgent and low. Curiosity gets the better of me, and before I can stop myself, I'm peeking around the corner. Jake, who usually looks like he'd rather be anywhere but home, was crouched over his desk, eyes darting nervously at a phone in one hand and a stack of papers that looked way too official in the other. Then, he slips the phone in his jacket and shuts off the desk lamp like he's hiding something, but when he hears me, his face freezes like I just caught him robbing a bank. But honestly, that's when the question hit me. What would you do if your roommate turned out to be someone you didn't know at all? I mean, Jake had always been this mystery wrapped in sweatshirts. He was chill, kept to himself, never caused drama. Basically the perfect roommate if you want silence and zero weirdness. But suddenly there was this whole other side of him I'd been completely blind to. And something told me this wasn't just some harmless late-night hobby or weird side hustle. It was bigger, different. I shut the door just a little bit quieter than usual, trying not to make a scene, but inside I was spinning. Because once you've glimpsed behind the curtain, it's hard, no, impossible, to just pretend you never saw anything. That one night, it tilted everything I thought I knew about living with Jake. My room, the apartment, my daily routine, everything felt like it was about to get flipped upside down. So yeah, I'm stuck now, wondering how long I can pretend all of this is normal before whatever Jake's hiding starts to spill over into my world, and if I even want to know the truth at all. It's weird living with someone who suddenly feels like a stranger, right? Well, that's what happened to me, and if you think it's the kind of story that's going to end quietly, you're in for a surprise. Jake was the kind of roommate you barely noticed if you weren't looking for him, the sort who'd vanish for hours without saying a word and then reappear like he'd been on a secret mission, or, honestly, probably just napping somewhere in the city. I mean, we shared a small apartment in this noisy, bustling place where privacy was a luxury, and Jake seemed to master the art of being, practically invisible. But now, after that Thursday night, I couldn't stop reevaluating every little thing. Like the phone calls he'd sneak away to take, speaking in hushed tones so quick you'd think he was afraid the walls had ears. I'd never really cared to press. Jake was always private, which was fine by me. But for some reason, those calls suddenly felt less like a guy dodging spam and more like he was juggling something serious. Sometimes he'd disappear for a few nights too, just ghost. Left vague messages about some stuff or taking care of things, but never anything concrete. I put it down to his laid-back vibe and maybe a complicated life outside our two-bedroom apartment. Still, none of it made sense after what I'd seen. Why all the late-night whispering, the official-looking papers, the way he immediately shut down the desk lamp like switching off a crime scene? That's when Mia came into the picture. Mia's my best friend since college, outspoken as hell and way too curious for her own good. When I finally spilled the Jake mystery over a couple of beers, she immediately perked up, eyes sparkling with that, "Oh, this is gonna be fun" look she always gets. "You're telling me you've been living with a guy you don't even know?" she said, shaking her head. "Dude, this is better than any binge-worthy show." She pushed me with questions, relentless but friendly, poking at all the little odd bits I'd shrugged off before. Like how Jake's jacket pockets sometimes looked like they were stuffed with something bulky, or how he always took the long route when he left the apartment at odd hours. On the surface, he was Mr. Chill, but under that casual exterior, something felt off. Mia didn't just want to hear stories. She wanted me to do a little digging. "Come on, man, you're not afraid, are you? What's the worst that could happen?" "Your roommate's got a secret life. We all do. You just gotta find out what kind of secret." That's how I found myself paying closer attention, trying to catch glimpses of what Jake really did when he wasn't at work, or home for that matter. I started noticing little things, like the way he'd pause before answering texts sometimes, or how he'd patch up his stories about where he was going. Not lies exactly, but vague enough to raise an eyebrow. I was stuck because, truthfully, I liked the easy silence we had going most days. Jake wasn't the type to stir up drama, and I liked it that way. But part of me couldn't shake the feeling that something about him was significant. Like, the kind of secret that might pull me into something far bigger than just awkward roommate conversations. And then there was the woman. Until that moment, I'd never met her or even heard Jake mention anyone special. She was mysterious, only showing up in fleeting glimpses when Jake thought no one was looking. This woman who kind of glowed in a way that made me realize there was a whole other side to Jake's life I'd never imagined. Mia was convinced that Jake's secret wasn't just some harmless side hustle or weird hobby. "There's a story here you're ignoring," she said once. "And maybe this story matters more than you think." So yeah, I was caught between wanting to respect his privacy and this nagging curiosity that was fast turning into an obsession. What was Jake hiding? Why? And how deep did it all go? Part of me wondered if I should just leave it alone and pretend like I hadn't walked in on that late night scene. But now, with Mia egging me on and details piling up, it felt like ignoring it was no longer an option. Living with Jake was about to become a lot more complicated than I ever expected. And honestly, I wasn't sure I was ready for what was coming next. I wasn't really sure when I crossed the line from being a curious roommate to, well, sort of a spy. But by the time I caught wind of that mysterious woman again, everything just spiraled and my brain refused to let go of the puzzle. It started one Friday evening. Jake had slipped out earlier with that same oversized jacket that always seemed way too heavy for downtown strolls. I figured I'd follow, not exactly full-on detective mode, but enough to keep an eye without looking like I was tailing him. Spoiler, I probably looked exactly like I was tailing him, but whatever. So, there I am, trailing behind him down the streets, winding through alleys and side roads I never even knew existed in our part of the city. Jake moved fast but looked like he was trying to stay under the radar. Then, near this dimly lit cafe that wasn't our usual hangout spot, he slowed down. That's when I saw her, the woman from before. She was waiting by the door, her silhouette framed by yellow streetlight making her look like she just stepped out of some noir film. Jake and she exchanged a quick nod, and then she slipped a small envelope into his hand. No words, just that silent, urgent exchange. I waited too long to make a move, though, and when they both entered the cafe, the door closed before I could get closer. I stood outside, pretending to be fascinated by the cracks in the pavement while my heart pounded because, honestly, this was way more intense than any neighborhood gossip. After that, I started hitting my limits. I was sneaking around, eavesdropping on half-caught phone calls, until one night I accidentally overheard a phone conversation that left me totally shaken. Jake's voice was low, cautious even, when he said, "I don't know if I can keep this up much longer. She's getting close to finding out, and you know what happens if she does." I froze, heart thumping in my chest. Who was she? The mysterious woman? Someone else? What was Jake so deeply involved in that being found out had real consequences? The cracking point came a week later when I was jogging home and spotted Jake leaning against the wall near the cafe, looking completely wrecked like somebody had just kicked him in the gut. The woman was with him, but the way they talked wasn't like a casual friendly chat. It was layered with tension. At one point, her voice rose just enough for me to catch. "You can't keep both worlds separate forever, Jake. Sooner or later, someone's gonna get hurt." And there it was, the threat all tangled up in soft words. My stomach twisted. Was I helping bring trouble into our place just by trying to find the truth? That night, I barely slept. The next day, I tried to play it cool, but Jake was acting different, more guarded. Which is when he cornered me in the kitchen. He looked tired, worn down, but also pissed. "Why have you been following me?" he asked, voice low. Caught off guard, I stammered. I don't know, man. I just needed to understand what's going on. You're closing me out, and it's messing with me." Jake shook his head slowly and ran a hand through his hair like he was trying to figure me out. "Look, I didn't want you dragged into this. It's not just about me, it's complicated. And if you keep digging—" He didn't finish the sentence, but I got it loud and clear. "Keep digging, and things are gonna get messy." It wasn't exactly a warning, it was more like a buckle up, because whatever Jake was juggling was pulling me into a storm I hadn't signed up for. And suddenly, all those silent nights, odd disappearances, and secret papers snapped into focus. This wasn't just about privacy or being mysterious, it was a full-on double life with stakes higher than I'd imagined. But even after that confrontation, the questions wouldn't go away. Who was she, really? What had Jake entangled himself in? And was I really ready to find out what would happen if those two worlds crashed our quiet apartment life and whatever secret Jake was hiding? After Jake cornered me in the kitchen, his tired eyes locked onto mine with this raw, unfiltered seriousness I hadn't seen before. A heaviness settled in the air between us. There was no dramatic yelling or slamming doors, just this quiet, intense moment where I realized I wasn't just living with a mysterious roommate anymore. I was living with a guy who was juggling something I couldn't even begin to fully understand. And then, finally, he started to open up, but not in the way I expected. Jake leaned against the counter, rubbing the back of his neck like he was rehearsing what to say, but still unsure of how to start. "Look, I'm not a spy or anything," he said, sounding almost amused at the thought, though the shadows under his eyes told a different story. "This isn't some cloak and dagger thing, it's complicated." He shared that the one who'd been slipping him envelopes in the cafe, was Sarah, someone from his past, someone he was trying to protect. "What? Like a witness protection thing?" I blurted, half joking to cut the tension. Jake shook his head slowly. "Kind of. Sarah's in a bad spot. Not the run from the law kind, but bad enough that she needed a way out of everything. And I've been helping her. This double life, it's about keeping her safe. It wasn't smooth, neither the explanation nor the situation. Jake wasn't some kind of superhero, he was just a guy who got pulled into something messy because he cared too much, maybe too recklessly. That whole stack of papers? Legal stuff, documents and letters related to custody battles, protection orders, things he had no business getting tangled up with but did because he couldn't turn his back on Sarah. Jake's voice cracked a little when he talked about the risks. There are people after her, dangerous people. If they find out she's got me involved, it could blow up everything, including this apartment we call home. The vulnerability in him was something I hadn't expected to see. That laid-back roommate persona? It was a mask, a shield against a world way messier than either of us had bargained for. So yeah, there was this big moment where I realized that the mysterious late nights, the secret calls, the disappearances, they weren't about hiding a wild double life for fun, but about managing a silent crisis. Jake wasn't just a guy with secrets. He was someone caught in the middle of something that threatened more than just his peace of mind. It changed how I saw him, no question. Suddenly, the questions about trust weren't about betrayal, but about how much someone could carry alone. Still, part of me was wrestling with the boundaries between being a friend and respecting his privacy versus feeling like I'd been left on the sidelines of a story that was unfolding right under my nose. In the days that followed, we didn't talk much about the details. Jake wasn't ready for that yet. But there was this quiet shift, an unspoken truce. I stopped lurking in the shadows, and he stopped shutting me out so completely. We settled into a strange new rhythm, both aware of the tightrope we were walking. Mia poked at me again, curious as ever. So, what's the plan now? Are you going to play hero or just let it be? I didn't have an answer, and honestly, I'm still not sure. Sometimes, I think about how easy it would be to just walk away, to pretend none of it ever happened and go back to a roommate arrangement that didn't come with late-night mysteries and whispered warnings. But when I see Jake, flawed, exhausted, trying to hold on to some semblance of normal life, it's hard to imagine that. Because here's the thing, living with a guy like Jake with all his secrets has made one thing clear. Sometimes the people you think you know best are carrying burdens you never saw coming. And figuring out how to live alongside that, that's a whole different kind of challenge. So where do we go from here? I don't know if there's a neat ending or a big reveal to come. Just two roommates, tangled up in a complicated story, learning that some secrets don't vanish, they just change shape, and maybe, just maybe, that's enough for now.